Bonjour and welcome to WASA Distance Education Center. This is our first week of classes for Term 1A. So Term 1A is from September 5th to November 3rd, 2024. If you have your WASA calendar, you will notice that on the left-hand side where there's a schedule of the terms. There's week the first week was the admin week, that was the 26th to the 30th, and then we are here now after the Labor Day weekend. Notice that September 2nd has been shaded to, I think it's a little bit of dark beige, and then the rest are all in yellow. So here we are on Tuesday, September 3rd. So we are starting with PLAR History, and then we will be looking at PLAR Geography probably in week 4 or 5. So first things first, again, welcome back. You can still register for the 2024-2025 courses at WASA. You can use the link that we have given to you for the WASA sign up. Just a reminder to students or potential students, when you use this link, if you do not remember your status card number, or if you don't have a phone number, use zeros to fill the application. So if you don't have that information, just use zeros so that it will accept your application. So if you don't have a phone number or you don't have your card info with you, just use the zeros to complete the application. If you don't want to do that, you can call the office at 807-737-1488, and you can speak to Candace if you're registering for PLAR, or you can talk to Michelle if you want to speak to an education counselor. Again, this year we will be doing application draws for students, and this is new. We will be also doing application draws for DECs. So DECs who register students, they will get a draw for getting students to apply, and then students who do register will have their name in. We will keep you posted on what the prizes will be for this term's draw. Which brings me to this part. We will still continue to do end of term draws for students who submit work. So if you're submitting work, you will have your name put in for that, and for students who complete or earn a credit. So right now it looks like this for the Term 1A Radio Zoom timetable. We have from 10 o'clock MAP 4C with Kobe, so that's a grade 12 course. And then we have PLAR English on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then the PLAR History Geography on Tuesdays and Thursdays. In the afternoon, we have the grade 12 English course, OLC 4.0 with Jillian, and then the ENG 4C with Doug. For ILC courses, we have a list. So if you are not sure which courses you should be taking, please contact your DEC or your education counselor here at WASA. We do have some ILC courses that we are offering. You will see who is teaching the course for the ILC courses. We also have GPP 3.0, which will not be starting till Term 2A. And some courses will also show that they're not available until further notice, but I think that's only 2 there that's not available. But the rest, you have quite a bit of courses that you can choose from. You will also see this on, if you go to my Facebook, it shows you there the courses that are offered with ILC, and then you also have the Term 1A Radio Zoom timetable courses that's available right now. So remember, from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, you have MAP 4C. The term, for Term 1A, we have the PLAR English, Mondays, Wednesdays, and then Tuesdays, Thursdays for PLAR History Geography. OLC 4.0 with Jillian, that's Monday to Thursday, and same thing with Doug, ENG 4C from 3 to 4. ways to participate in our classes. Remember, these classes are tutorial, so you have everything that you need in your lesson book, but you can still participate live. You can either contact us through the radio by calling the 1-800-465-7144 or 807-737-4017, or you can also use our Zoom link. So each teacher has a Zoom link that you can use to join our classes. You can still listen to 91.9 FM or go to Bell Express View 972. So again, all PLAR packages, they are the same whether you are registered in the radio Zoom or whether you registered for independent learning or IL. And PLAR students, you may continue where you left off. So let's say last term you only got as far as lesson 2 in PLAR history. When you pick up or register for this term, you may continue with lesson 3. So this is what it looks like. The new PLAR history, the study guide says 2024-2025. If you are working off on the 2023-24, that's fine. Okay, you don't need to start over. Again, you start from where you left off. So you have 3 lessons for PLAR history, lessons 1, 2, and 3. For each of these lessons, it will give you the WASA studio number, the Zoom link for the classes. If that's not working, it will also give you the meeting ID and the passcode. It gives you the office number, the toll-free number, the fax number, gives you my email, my Facebook and YouTube profile. And if you want, you can go to the Google Classroom. The code is different if you have an NNEC Schools email, or if you have your own personal account, the classroom code will be different. So make sure that when you're signing in, that you are using the correct account. You might have to log off or sign off on all accounts in order to get in. So PLAR Science, PLAR History, and Geography, we have videos or classes for them on YouTube. Same thing with PLAR English and PLAR Math. Again, it's best to go to the playlist section. It will show you all the classes. So if you are still working on your PLAR Science, you can access that on YouTube. Go to PLAR Science 2B 2024. Now the PLAR History, this will be updated because I will be putting in the Term 1A classes in there. But I will keep the PLAR History 2A in case someone is already working on their lesson 2 and 3. And of course the PLAR Geography will also be available. So it looks like this when you go to YouTube. So all you have to do is put in my profile name, J. Mercer Wassa. So the videos, if you click videos, it will show you all the videos that I have downloaded in there. Or if you go to playlists, which I said was easier because you can pick which course you want to view. Okay, and they're all listed by lesson and by key questions. So it makes it easier for you to search the classes that you want to watch. So it looks like this. Just like if you request for a USB of classes, this is how it will be sorted or named. It'll say PLAR History, Lesson 1, and it'll give you the key questions. So with the USB, you do not need internet or Wi-Fi. You just need a USB port to insert the flash drive, and then you can watch the classes. Also, students who are registered with WASA, actually all students registered with NNEC can have access to a G Suite account. That means we will give you an email account. If you forget your password, okay, I can reset it. Or if you already have an email but you haven't been able to get in there, I'm able to activate your email too if you'd like. So once your email is activated, you have access to Gmail, you have access to your Drive, documents, sheets, calendar, and so on. As I mentioned earlier, the classes for PLAR History, Geography, and Science, it depends which account you're using for your Gmail. So if you are using your NNEC school student account, the class codes will be different from if you're using your personal Gmail account. Okay, next up, key questions. So the key questions is what is needed to be submitted. So you will be evaluated on your answers to the key questions in each lesson. There are several ways or different options for you to submit your work for marking. So first one is you can scan your work for marking, and you can use your iPhone Notes app, and then you can email or you can send it through Messenger. Okay, so this is the scan feature. So you can see there, you can scan. This is different from taking a picture. When you're scanning the page, it will only capture the sheet. So it doesn't take any of the background. Okay, this is an example of where you take a picture and then you can send it through Facebook Messenger. So students sent me that picture. Notice that you also get the background. So if you're not sure on how to use the scanner feature on your phone or your iPad, just let me know and I can help you through that. So once you have scanned it, again, a couple of options. You can email it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. So make sure it's studentwork@nnec, not NNEC schools. Okay, make sure the email is correct there, or it won't go to student work. Make sure you CC it to me so that I know that you have submitted work. And my email is jmercer@nnec.on.ca. Another option is sending it through Google Classroom. So if you send it through Google Classroom, you simply go to the question. So here, for example, it says PLAR History Lesson 1. It's asking you to identify and describe the 4 concepts of historical thinking. You simply write in your answer or type it up. And then you have to submit it. Okay, and you submit it by turning it in. Okay, that is different from sharing. Sharing on Google, notice that there is a lock button, okay, on the share feature. If that is locked, that means anything that you write in there, whatever document you're working on, is private only to you. That means only you can read it. So if you want to share it with your teacher, so in this case you want to share it with me, you can share lesson 1 key questions, and then you pick my email or you type it in. Once you put in my email there once, it will remember it, and you can share your lesson or key questions that you are completing, and then I will be able to see it. Then I can print it from my end. Okay, 2 more options. You can have your DEC scan, or they can still fax it for you. And finally, you can drop it off at 74 Front Street. We do have a WASA outdoor mailbox on the side entrance, or you can simply knock on our door and someone will receive your assignments. So make sure you put your name on your assignment so that we know who it came from. And again, if you have any other concerns or questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. So PLAR History and PLAR Geography, some students do not need to do both of them. So here's the question, do I do both? So it depends. So if you think back, did you do your PLAR, or sorry, did you do a history course? Now, history courses are a grade 10 course, and then geography courses are a grade 9 course. So when you went to high school, if you did a grade 9 course in geography and you completed it, that means you received a credit, then you don't have to do the PLAR geography. If you did the grade 10 history and received a credit, then you don't have to do the grade 10 history. So here's an example. Okay, it's a student. So it will say PLAR geography to do, but this person must have completed their history in grade 10, so it will say NA. So that's how I know if you need to do your PLAR history or geography, or if you need to do both. So again, if you're not sure, ask your DEC or call the office. So here is the course calendar for PLAR History Geography. As I mentioned, between weeks 4 and 5, okay, we will be starting the PLAR Geography. It'll be 2 one-hour radio classes each week for 9 weeks. So, and it's only on twice a week. So as I said, we're on Tuesdays and Thursdays this term. And this one was just updated. So the study guide that you received would not have had the times for term 1A and 2A. Okay, so in 2A, PLAR History Geography will be on Tuesdays and Thursdays again from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Once you start submitting your work, you will get a mark sheet, just like what I have here on the smartboard. So keep it when you receive it, because it will give you, you can use it as a checklist for which key questions you have submitted. So for PLAR History, there are 41 key questions in total. So when you get this, I will have this filled out, student name, your community, the date, which questions you might need to resubmit. It gives you a percentage. So let's say, for example, you got 53 out of 53 out of the lesson 1. So I will give you a percentage of what you have received for lesson 1. After completing the 3 lessons, you will need to complete the culminating activity. In order to pass it, you will need 50% and above. So either myself or your DEC will give you the culminating activity to complete, and then students will receive equivalent credits based on what you get, okay, in that assessment. Okay, now we can start with lesson 1. So lesson 1 in PLAR History. First off, what will you learn in lesson 1? Well, the first thing you will learn is that you will be able to explain the concepts of historical thinking. You'll be able to identify events of historical significance from the early 20th century. You will understand the effects of the residential school system. You will be able to describe Canada's contributions during World War I. And finally, you will be able to compare and contrast the roles of men and women during the early 1900s. We study world history because the events of the past, so things that happened in the past, shape the present and influence the future. So history is more than just studying what happened in the past. When you study a historical event, you are also studying society's culture, religion, politics, and economics. So people who study history are called historians, and they are someone who studies the past. They get information, much like a detective gathers clues. Historians try to be objective. That means they rely on evidence to support claims. They analyze and interpret the past. They do research, so they research a wide variety of historical documents. They also write reports and book on historical findings and theories. They archive or preserve materials in museums or historic sites, and they gather data from archives, books, and artifacts. The goal of studying history is to gain insight into the past. That means it'll help us understand the present and anticipate future developments. Okay, so if you're following along in your lesson book, okay, we're on page 2. Okay, there are also other types of historians. So if you look on the right-hand side, it says complete the following sentences using the key terms below: forensic scientist, linguist, paleontologist, and humankind. So a historian who studies dinosaur bones is called, and then number 2, a historian who studies potential evidence at a crime scene is called. Number 3, a historian who studies all the ways we've used the English language is called A, and then an anthropologist is a historian who studies the evolution of. Okay, so I'll give you a moment to look through that. So remember, you have 4 to identify, and then the answers are forensic scientist, linguist, paleontologist, and humankind. So sometimes it's easiest to complete what you know first. So for example, a historian who studies dinosaur bones is called a paleontologist. And then a historian who studies potential evidence at a crime scene is called a forensic scientist. So if you ever watch that show Bones, okay, she is a forensic scientist. And then a historian who studies all the ways we've used the English language is called a linguist. And then the last one, an anthropologist, is a historian who studies the evolution of humankind. So now we've looked at why we've studied history, or why we're studying history. We looked at historians, so people who study history. So what is history about? Well, history is about who, what, and when. So who could be human beings, so we're studying people's lives. What could be the evidence or sources that say something about the past, and then when. It's about the past, we study things that happened before us. So some questions that we can think about is, why did something happen? What effect did or could an event have on the future? What connections are there between events? Can a trend, that means direction of change, be recognized? And can predictions be made? Okay, so those are some of the questions to think about when we're looking at history. On page 3 of your lesson book, in the Ontario curriculum, there are 4 central concepts of historical thinking. So the first one is historical significance. Number 2, cause and consequence. 3, continuity and change. And finally, 4, historical perspective. So we will be looking at each of these central concepts closely. The first one is historical significance. And significance just means explains why something is important. Why is it significant? So why is this important? What impact has this had on us or the world? Are the impacts short or long-lasting? Who is this important to? Who is this not important to? And how is this relevant to other issues or events today? So historical significance simply refers to the importance of an event, person, or development in history and its impact on the present and future. So when something is historically significant, it has lasting effects on society. It also affects culture, politics, or the economy. So we'll look at a couple of examples on historical significance. The first one, like I said, the effects caused by a person or event can either be immediate or continue to impact more people over the days. It could be months, years, decades, or even centuries afterwards. So typically, the more people affected can either be for better or for worse, the more significant it is considered to be. So if we look at Terry Fox, he inspired the nation and the world through his courageous struggle against cancer and, of course, his determination to raise funds for cancer research. Not long after losing his right leg to cancer, Terry Fox decided to run across Canada to raise awareness and money for cancer research. So he started from St. John's, Newfoundland, to Thunder Bay, Ontario, covering 5,373 kilometers in 143 days. Unfortunately, he was forced to stop his marathon of hope when cancer invaded his lungs. But every year, millions of people in close to 25 countries participate in what's called either the Terry Fox Runs or Terry Fox fundraising events. So again, what he did has impacted a lot of people, and it's gone on for decades now. So to date, over 850 million has been raised for cancer research in Terry's name through the annual Terry Fox Run, and it's held across Canada and around the world. Okay, so definitely historical significance. They result in change, and also it reveals something about the time. Okay, here's another one. This one is just recent. COVID-19 is historically significant because it affected almost every aspect of life around the world. So this pandemic led to widespread illness and death. It caused major disruptions in the global economy. It changed the way people work. So remember, people were working from home. Also changed the way people learned and interacted with each other. Governments imposed lockdowns and travel restrictions. So all in all, this had a significant social and economic consequences. So other things that it impacted, well, the pandemic accelerated technological advancements. So healthcare and communication, that it has affected. Development and distribution of vaccines occurred in record time. They did it quickly. It demonstrated the power of modern science. It highlighted international cooperation. So countries cooperated with each other to make sure that people around the world were able to receive vaccines. Businesses and schools rapidly adopted digital tools using video conferencing, online learning, and these changes may continue to influence work and education in the future. So in history, COVID-19 will be studied as a major event that reshaped the world. It's similar to other significant events, which we will look at in history, World War II, and also in this lesson, the Great Depression. So it's a clear example of how a single event can have widespread and lasting effects on societies globally. Okay, the next one for the concept of historical thinking is what's called cause and consequence. So cause is about identifying the reasons or factors that lead to an event. Now the cause can be a single factor, or it could be a combination of several factors. And causes can be long-term, that means it could develop over time, or it could be short-term, which means it's immediate triggers. Now consequence refers to what happens as a result of an event. So something happened, now there's a consequence. And the consequence can be immediate, or it can be long-lasting. They can also be positive, negative, or maybe it's a mixture of both. So for example, you see the picture here, it visually connects the causes. So there was an accident. So was the accident due to distracted driving, or was it due to poor weather, or maybe it was a combination of both? But there are also consequences. The consequences were there was damage because of the accident and possibly an injury due to the accident. Okay, so that's what we mean by cause and consequence. So in history, the historian, like the insurance investigator, that person will have to sift through evidence to determine the causes of events, and often from a multitude of possibilities. So it could be speeding, distracted driving, could be the weather, and so on. Unlike the investigator, though, the historian is also interested in the event's consequences. Okay, here's another example of cause and consequence. This one is people invented the printing press, radio, and television. So that is the cause. What are the effects? Well, because they invented the printing press, people read more. So they started reading more books, newspapers, flyers, and posters. Because the radio and television were invented, they listened to music. They heard news from different parts of the country or world. And the television are able to watch shows and news. So historical events often have many different causes and can have a wide range of consequences for different people. Some causes are more important and influential than others. Historical events are usually a result of two different types of factors. So it could be the actions of people, that's what caused it, or the social, political, economic, cultural, and environmental context. And then the consequences of historical events cannot always be predicted. So often the actions, so if you look at page if you look at page 4, so this can be found on page 4. So often the actions of historical actors can have unintended consequences. So by studying cause and consequence, you can understand not just what happened in history, but also why it happened and how it affected the future. Okay, Okay, moving on now to continuity and change, and you can find that on page 5. So continuity and change, understanding that certain things, so it could be attitudes, processes, and actions, change over time and certain things remain the same. So you can see the picture on the right hand side. You have students sitting in a classroom. They're sitting on their desk. You can refer that as continuity. So that means refers to things that remain consistent over time, but maybe some of that have changed. Maybe they have tables. So they have a table and then they just have desk instead of individual desks for each student. These can be attitudes too, practices, traditions, or systems that don't change much even as the world around them does. For example, certain cultural traditions, like celebrating holidays, these might continue in a similar way for centuries. Okay, the opposite of that is change. Change is what evolves over shifts over time. So it can be a change in technology. It could be a change in ideas, laws, or social structures. So think about, for example, how communication has changed from letters and landlines to smartphones and social media. Okay, how many of you do not have landlines anymore? So that's a change. So you can see how the telephone has evolved. It went from having a landline, then having cordless, now you have a smartphone. So in history, by studying both continuity and change, we learn how societies maintain certain traditions while also adapting to new circumstances and ideas. So this understanding helps us see the dynamics of how the world is evolving. Okay, finally, we have historical perspective. So that's number 4. So in historical perspective, what we're looking at is identifying events from the viewpoint of people who lived through the times. This helps us understand how different people experience the same events in different ways. So even modern historians have their own perspectives, which can influence how they interpret the past. So for example, here you have 2 groups of fans at a football match. They are watching the same game, but they're watching the same game differently, because fans of the winning side will have a positive view. Okay, and they'll talk about, oh, how great the game, their team's actions were. And you can clearly see which group are the fans of the winning side. Okay, you can see them cheering, and then you can see the fans who are watching their team losing. Okay, it's the same game they're watching, but they have a different perspective. So identify and consider perspectives of groups of people not mentioned or briefly mentioned in textbooks. What are their perspectives? Indigenous, Inuit, Métis peoples, women, children, laborer, and other people. Their knowledges and experiences often not considered or included. Okay, so their perspectives will differ. Also, the term Eurocentric. This is centered on Europe or the Europeans, especially reflecting a tendency to interpret the world in terms of European or Anglo-American values and experiences. So that means you could have biased media coverage. The selection and framing of news often have a Eurocentric bias, as they give much more attention to Western societies than to non-Western ones. And then even when they do represent the latter, it is usually with negative stereotyping. So here's something to think about. How did soldiers from Canada First Nations, Métis and Inuit, and people of color perceived their involvement in World War I. So again, we're thinking about their perspective. So even though they shared a common experience of the war, their individual perspectives reflected their diverse backgrounds and specific challenges they faced. For example, if we look at the French Canadians, when they went to war, all the manuals were in English. Okay, when First Nations and Métis and Inuit people went to war, they were discriminated upon, even though they were on the same group. Okay, and finally, let's look at the historical inquiry process. Okay, and that you can find on page 6 of your book. So in history, the historical inquiry process, this is just a method that's used to investigate the past. It's how historians, students, and researchers get their information. They ask questions and then they analyze evidence to understand what happened and why. So if, for example, if we have the following questions, what were the most significant inventions in the 20th century? Why did First Nations sign treaties with Canada? What are the consequences of residential schools? How did women in Canada get the right to vote? So those are just example questions. But by following the historical inquiry process, you become an active participant in exploring history. Okay, not just by learning about it, but understanding the why and how behind historical events. So if we want to pick one question, in order to answer the question, we need to use the historical inquiry process. And it involves the following steps. So the first thing you have to do is you have to ask questions, or you create questions about historical event, about the person or topic. So for example, if we say, why did First Nations sign treaties with Canada? We're looking at asking questions about a historical event and creating questions about it. Next, we gather and organize historical evidence about your topic. Then you interpret and analyze the evidence that you have gathered. Next is evaluating your evidence, and then you come up with some conclusions based upon what you have learned. And finally, after you have gathered all of that, you communicate your answers in a clear and concise format. So question, gather and organize, interpret and analyze, evaluate, and then you communicate. Okay, finally, once you have your historical evidence, now historical evidence could be letters, it could be documents, records, diaries, drawings, newspaper accounts, and other bits and pieces left behind by those who have passed on. So these are all treasures to the historian. These are what are referred to as primary sources. So historians learn to read these sources. So a primary source is something that was created or written during the time period that you are studying. It's a direct link to the past because it comes from someone who actually experienced or witnessed the event. So historical evidence can take many forms. It could be physical, meaning it's a building, monument, object. It could be a piece of clothing or pottery. It could be written, like a diary, a book, letter, plan, even a receipt. Visual could be a painting, photograph, movie, or geographical feature. It could be oral. That means it could be a memory, an oral story, nursery rhyme, sound recording, or song. So even something as simple as a shopping list from 100 years ago can help us understand how the people who came before us lived, What did they buy? How much money would this have cost? And what did they earn? How many people did they have to feed in their family? It might be possible to answer some of these questions through something that simple. So it's a good demonstration of the power of a historical source. So if you look at the prices of McDonald's menu in the 70s, you can get a quarter pounder for 70 cents. And now a quarter pounder is $7.29. So again, you can compare the prices from back in the 70s to now. And then a written evidence, like I said, it could be a diary, a book, a letter, plan, or receipt. Anne Frank, she was a famous German Jewish teenage girl, and she wrote in her diary while she was hiding for 2 years with her family during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands. So her personal diary gave insights into how she felt and what she has experienced. It was Anne, her sister, Margot, her mother, Edith, and her father. They went into hiding. They huddled into a secret attic apartment behind the office of a family-owned business. So the book, or the name of the book, is The Diary of a Young Girl. It remains one of the most read books in the world. Okay, and we're just in time to look at the support question. So the support questions, the answers are at the end of the lesson. So you can try these out. What are the 4 concepts of historical thinking? Give 2 examples of things that can count as historical evidence. So what I need you to do is you do your key question 1. You have to go to page 33, just like this. What I want you to do is, when you complete your key question, send only the pages where the key questions are. So if you're sending lesson 1 key questions 1 to 18, you will only send me pages 33 to 37. Do not send me the whole lesson. You should keep that to use for a review. Again, you do not need to send in the entire lesson, just those pages 33 to 37. You might be wondering, where do I look for answers? Okay, you can find them in your lesson book. There is no need to search online to look for answers. That means you don't have to do a Google search. You don't need the internet. Use the information we've covered in the lesson or what we've talked about in class. So this will help you better understand the material and practice critical thinking. And I can say this, most of the questions, if not all of them, are what I refer to as hand questions. And they are referred to as hand questions because you can put your hand on the answer, or your finger. So for example, if I said, what is a head tax? So you can read immigration and racism, and you can see the word head tax. It says the Canadian government began to charge a head tax on all Chinese immigrants entering the country. That's what a head tax is. What did women who immigrated, what were they required to do? It says here, women were required to take care of the entire household, do many of the farm chores, and bear many children. So that's what I mean by hand questions. You can actually put your finger or your hand on the answer. Okay, so try to do key question 1. Now this is very different from last year's key question. I've changed it a bit. What I need you to do is you just match the correct letter to the 4 concepts of historical thinking. So the description is on the right-hand side. The concept is on the left-hand side. You simply match it. So you write the letter. So if you read, helps us understand what has changed over time and what has stayed the same. Okay, I'll do that one. So we know number 3 is continuity and change. So you just put in letter A there. Okay, and that's all we have time for today. I will talk to you again on Thursday. So remember, it's on Thursday from 11 till noon. Okay, miigwech, and I will see you then.